Angola, a vast and resource-rich country on the southwestern coast of Africa, has a history that is as complex as it is fascinating. From ancient kingdoms and Portuguese colonization to decades of conflict and the slow path to peace, Angola's past has profoundly shaped its present identity. This quick history aims to give a clear, comprehensive overview of Angola's journey through time, while remaining accessible and engaging for readers, seeking both context and insight. Early peoples and ancient kingdoms, long before the arrival of Europeans, the territory now known as Angola was inhabited by diverse communities. Archaeological evidence suggests that hunter-gatherer groups lived in the region thousands of years ago. Later waves of Bantu-speaking peoples migrated southwards and westwards from Central Africa between 1000 BCE and 500 CE, bringing with them ironworking, agriculture, and new social systems. By the 13th and 14th centuries, several organized kingdoms and chiefdoms had emerged, the most prominent being the Kingdom of Kongo in the north, the Ndongo Kingdom in the Central Highlands, and the Luanda Empire further inland. The Kingdom of Kongo, circa 14th century to 19th century. At its height, this kingdom controlled large areas spanning present-day northern Angola, western Congo, and southern Gabon. It was a highly centralized state with a king known as the Mane Kongo, who ruled from the capital Mbanza, Congo. The kingdom was well-structured politically, had vibrant trade systems, and developed diplomatic relations with Europeans. The Ndongo Kingdom. Situated further south of Congo, Ndongo was ruled by leaders called Angola, a title that would later inspire the name of the country itself. Angola. Ndongo became one of the most important centers of power and resistance once Europeans began expanding influence in the region. The Luanda Empire. By the 17th century, the Luanda people established a powerful confederation inland, which thrived on long-distance trade networks connecting Angola with the Congo Basin. These kingdoms were not isolated. They were dynamic and well-connected, both through trade routes linking Africa's interior and through early encounters with foreign merchants along the coast. Portuguese arrival and colonization. The turning point in Angolan history came in 1483, when Portuguese explorer Diogo Cao reached the mouth of the Congo River. The Portuguese were initially interested in trade, particularly ivory, copper, and textiles. They established relations with the Kingdom of Kongo, exchanging goods and introducing Christianity. Over time, however, trade in enslaved people became central. By the early 16th century, Angola became one of the largest sources of enslaved Africans transported across the Atlantic. Estimates suggest that between 3 to 5 million Angolans were forcibly shipped to Brazil and the Caribbean between the 16th and 19th centuries, making Angola one of the epicenters of the transatlantic slave trade. Queen Nzinga, a symbol of resistance. Among the most iconic figures of Angolan resistance to Portuguese domination was Queen Nzinga Mbande of Ndongo and Matamba, 1583 to 1663. A skilled diplomat and fierce military strategist, Nzinga fought against Portuguese encroachment for decades. She is remembered as a national heroine who symbolized defiance, resilience, and political ingenuity in the face of European colonial aggression. Expansion of colonial rule. Although Portugal had a presence on the Angolan coast since the 16th century, effective control over the interior was limited for centuries. It was not until the late 19th and early 20th centuries, during the scramble for Africa, that Portugal began asserting stronger authority inland, backed by military campaigns and the exploitation of local labor. Angola in the 20th century, colonial oppression and rising nationalism. By the 20th century, Angola was firmly under Portuguese colonial rule. Unlike many European colonies that transitioned toward independence after World War II, Portugal, under dictator Antonio Salazar, clung tightly to its African territories, labeling them overseas provinces. Exploitation under Portuguese rule. The colonial system was built on forced labor, racial discrimination, and economic extraction. Angolans were subjected to harsh working conditions on plantations, mines, and infrastructure projects, while land and wealth were concentrated in the hands of Portuguese settlers. Education and political rights for the majority population were severely restricted. Birth of nationalist movements. By the mid-20th century, nationalist sentiments surged. Inspired by global decolonization trends and the struggles of neighboring African states, Angolan leaders began organizing resistance movements. Three main groups emerged. MPLA, Popular Movement for the Liberation of Angola, founded in 1956, rooted largely in Luanda's urban intelligentsia and supported by socialist and communist allies. FNLA, National Front for the Liberation of Angola, established in 1962, drawing support from northern Angola and backed by some Western and regional powers. UNITA, National Union for the Total Independence of Angola, formed in 1966 under Jonas Savimbi, based mainly in the Central Highlands with a strong rural following. These groups not only sought independence from Portugal, but also differed ideologically, laying the seeds for later conflict. The War of Independence, 1961 to 1975. The push for independence escalated dramatically in 1961 when violent uprisings broke out in northern Angola. Portuguese forces responded brutally, leading to thousands of deaths. This marked the beginning of a prolonged war of independence, which lasted for over a decade. During this period, Angola became a key battleground in the Cold War. The MPLA received support from the Soviet Union and Cuba, while the FNLA and UNITA were backed at different times by the United States. Zaire, now Democratic Republic of Congo, South Africa, and China. Finally, in April 1974, a military coup in Lisbon overthrew Portugal's authoritarian regime, paving the way for the independence of its African colonies. On November 11, 1975, Angola declared independence, with the MPLA taking power in Luanda. The Angolan Civil War, 1975 to 2002. Tragically, independence did not bring peace. Instead, Angola plunged into one of Africa's longest and most devastating civil wars. Cold War proxy battlefield. The Civil War began almost immediately after independence, with the MPLA government facing off against UNITA and FNLA rebels. Each faction received backing from global powers. MPLA, supported by the Soviet Union and thousands of Cuban troops. UNITA, funded by the U.S., apartheid South Africa, and later by diamond revenues. FNLA, initially backed by Zaire and the U.S., though it declined in influence. The conflict was not only ideological, but also deeply rooted in ethnic, regional, and historical divisions. Human cost. The Civil War lasted 27 years, ending only in 2002. It devastated Angola. Nearly 500,000 people were killed, millions displaced, and infrastructure across the country was destroyed. The economy became heavily militarized, with revenues from oil and diamonds fueling the war rather than development. The turning point. The war gradually wound down after the death of UNITA leader Jonas Savimbi in 2002. A peace agreement soon followed, bringing an official end to the conflict. The MPLA consolidated its position as the ruling party, led first by President José Eduardo dos Santos, who remained in power until 2017. Post-war Angola. Reconstruction and challenges. Since the end of the war, Angola has experienced both significant progress and persistent challenges. Economic boom and inequality. The early 2000s saw rapid economic growth fueled by Angola's abundant oil reserves, making it one of Africa's top oil producers. Major reconstruction projects began in cities and infrastructure. However, the wealth was unevenly distributed. While Luanda became one of the most expensive cities in the world, poverty remained widespread in rural areas. Politics and governance. Under the MPLA's continued rule, Angola has faced criticism for corruption, authoritarian tendencies, and limited political freedoms. When President João Lourenço succeeded Dos Santos in 2017, he pledged reforms, including anti-corruption efforts and diversification of the economy. Contemporary society today, Angola is a nation balancing its painful past with hopes for the future. The scars of war are still visible in the social fabric, but the country's cultural richness, youthful population, and vast natural resources provide potential for transformation. Conclusion. Angola's story